told myself it was just fitness. That's the first lie I remember clearly. The one I whispered to myself in the car on the way to Derek's apartment for the third time that week. My gym bag sat in the passenger seat like evidence I never planned to use. I'd actually gone to the gym twice in the past month. The rest of the time I was parking 2 blocks away from Derek's place, checking my phone obsessively to make sure Jake hadn't texted, and walking up those stairs with my heart hammering so hard I thought I'd pass out. Jake, my husband of 7 years, father to our 2 kids, the man who still kissed me goodbye every morning and asked about my day every night like he genuinely cared about the answer. I want to tell you I didn't know what I was doing. But that would be another lie, and I've told enough of those. It started innocuously enough, or at least that's what I told myself. Derek had been Jakey's best friend since college. He'd been at our wedding, held our daughter when she was born, helped us move into our house. He was safe, familiar, and when Jake started working longer hours at the firm, when the kids started demanding every ounce of energy I had, when I started feeling like a background character in my own life, Derek was there. Just talking at first, complaining about how invisible I felt, how long it had been since Jake and I had a real conversation that wasn't about schedules or bills or whose turn it was to do bath time. Derek listened in a way that made me feel seen again. Made me feel like I was still the woman I'd been before I became someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's a something. You deserve better than this, he'd said one night, sitting too close to me on his couch. You deserve to be appreciated. I knew what that sentence meant, I knew where this was heading, and I didn't stop it. The first time I kissed him I told myself it was a mistake, an accident, too much wine, too much loneliness, too much of his hand on my knee making me feel something other than exhausted. I went home that night and climbed into bed next to Jake, listened to him breathe, and swore it would never happen again. But then there was a second time, and a third, and somewhere around the 5th or 6th time, I stopped counting. I stopped calling them mistakes. The thing about cheating is that it requires a remarkable amount of planning. You'd think it would be spontaneous, passionate, some uncontrollable force, but really it's calculated, it's lies upon lies stacked so carefully that you start to believe them yourself. Going to the gym, babe, I'd call out, kissing Jake on the cheek. Have fun. Love you, he'd say, not even looking up from his laptop. See, he doesn't even care. He doesn't even notice. That's what I'd tell myself in the car. He's so absorbed in work that he barely sees me anymore. This isn't really my fault. I'm just filling a void he created. I crafted an entire narrative where I was the victim, where Jake's emotional unavailability justified my actions, where Derek's attention was something I've deserved after years of being taken for granted. I look back now and I'm horrified by how easily I rewrote reality. The truth, Jake was working those long hours to make partners so we could afford the house I wanted, the house with the good school district. The one I'd circled in the real estate listings and said, this is where I want to raise our family. The truth, when I told Jake I wanted to start working out more, he'd been supportive, encouraging. He'd rearranged his schedule twice to be home earlier so I could go to the gym. The truth, every single thing that felt like neglect was just life, marriage, parenthood, the ordinary challenges that every couple faces, and that most people work through without blowing up their entire family. But I didn't want to work through it. I wanted to feel that rush again. That newness. The way Derek looked at me like I was still exciting, still desirable, still someone worth pursuing. With Jake as the woman who forgot to buy milk and left the laundry in the washer too long and fell asleep during every movie we tried to watch. With Derek I was someone else entirely. Someone I recognized from a decade ago. Someone I missed. I thought I could have both. God, I was so stupid. The kids started noticing I was gone more. Lily, our 6-year-old, asked me one morning why I went to the gym so much. Mummy's just trying to be healthy, sweetie, I said, kissing her forehead. But you never show us your muscles, she said, and my stomach dropped. I will soon, I lied. I'm still building them. I avoided looking at her too long after that. Avoided really seeing my kids if I'm honest. Because when I looked at them, at their faces that were a perfect blend of me and Jake, at their innocent trust that their parents would always be there, I felt something that threatened to crack through all my carefully constructed justifications. Guilt, so I just didn't look too closely. I kept them at arm's length emotionally, went through the motions, made their lunches, drove them to school, helped with homework, tucked them in, but I wasn't really there. I was already somewhere else, already planning my next escape. Jake started asking questions around month 4. You're at the gym a lot, said one night, his tone casual but his eyes searching. I'm training for a 10K, I said, the lie sliding out smooth as silk. I'd practiced it. That's great, babe. I didn't know you were interested in running. There's a lot you don't know about me anymore, I said, and I actually felt righteous saying it. Like I was the wronged party. He looked hurt. Actually hurt, and instead of feeling bad I felt angry. Angry that he made me feel guilty when he was the reason I was doing this in the first place. That's what I told myself anyway. Derek started talking about us more seriously around month 5. About what would happen if I left Jake. If we could actually be together, and I'm ashamed to admit that I entertained those conversations. I let myself imagine it. A life where I wasn't drowning in domesticity, where every day felt exciting again. But I never seriously considered leaving. I wanted both. I wanted the security and stability Jake provided, the house, the family, the life we'd built, and I wanted the excitement and validation Derek gave me. I wanted to have my cake and eat it too, as the saying goes. I thought I was clever enough to maintain both forever. I wasn't. It was a Thursday night late. I told Jake I was meeting my friend Sarah for drinks. Another lie. I'd actually been at Derek's and I'd stayed too long. Lost track of time in a way that should have terrified me but somehow didn't. When I pulled into our driveway at 11:47 p.m., Jake's car, well, he should have been asleep. He was always asleep by 10:30. The house was dark except for the living room light. I sat in my car for a full minute, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, trying to construct a believable story. Sarah and I lost track of time. My phone died. Traffic was terrible. But when I walked in and saw Jake sitting on the couch, his phone in his hand, his face completely blank, I knew before he said anything. Sarah called looking for you an hour ago, he said quietly. She wanted to know if you could babysit next week. She seemed confused when I said you were out with her. My mouth? Jake? I called the gym, he continued, his voice so calm it was terrifying. I've been calling them for the past 3 weeks actually. Different times you've never been there. Not once when you said you were. The floor tilted beneath me. I know where you've been, he said, and he held up his phone. I've known for 2 weeks. I've been tracking your car. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All those carefully constructed lies were crumbling so fast I couldn't even grab onto one to save myself. Derek, he said, and it wasn't a question. My best friend. You've been going to Derek's apartment. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't crying, he was just hollow, empty, like someone had reached inside and scooped out everything that made him Jake. It's not, I started, but I couldn't finish, because what was I going to say? It's not what you think. It was exactly what he thought. The kids are at my mom's, he said. I need you to go upstairs, pack a bag and leave. Tonight, Jake, please, we can talk about this. Noon. The word was final. Absolute. You don't get to do this to me and then ask me to talk. You don't get to destroy everything we built and then ask for a conversation. You made your choice. Every single time you got in your car and drove to his place, you made your choice. Mistakes happen once, he said, and finally, I saw emotion crack through. Pain. Raw, devastating pain. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice you made over and over and over again, while I was working to give us a better life, while our kids were asking where mommy was, while I was planning our anniversary trip because I thought we needed to reconnect. He was planning an anniversary trip. The room spun. Get out, he said. I have a lawyer. You'll hear from them tomorrow. Get out of my house, I whispered. No, he said. Mine. My name is on the mortgage. My money paid for it, and you will never set foot in it again after tonight. The only time you'll see our kids is when a custody agreement says you can. Now get out before I say something I'll regret. I wanted to argue, to fight, to make him understand. But the look in his eyes stopped me. It was over. Everything was over. And I'd done it all to myself. The hotel room smelled like generic cleaning products in other people's lives. I sat on the edge of the bed at 2 a.m., my hastily packed bag at my feet, and tried to process what had just happened. My phone kept buzzing. Text after text after text. Derek? Where are you? Are you Derek? Jake called me. He knows. What do we do? We need to talk. I didn't respond. I just stared at the messages, watching them pile up, feeling absolutely nothing. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from my mother-in-law and a single text from Jake's lawyer with the name of my own attorney. Apparently Jake had already found me representation. Even in his devastation, he was thinking more clearly than I was. I called Derek. Thank God, he said when he answered. I've been losing my mind. Are you okay? Where are you? A hotel! Come here, come stay with me. We can figure this out together. The word felt obscene. We weren't together. We were never together. We were just two people stealing moments that weren't ours to take. I can't, I said. What do you mean you can't? This is what we wanted, isn't it? To be together. Is it? I asked, and I realized I was crying. Did you want this? Did you want to blow up 2 lives? Because I don't remember us ever talking about that. I remember you telling me I deserved better, but I don't remember you offering to actually be there for the aftermath. Silence on the other end. This is a lot, he finally said. Maybe we should take some time. Let things settle. He was already backing away, already realizing that the fantasy was very different from the reality. That a woman who cheated on her husband, who was about to lose custody of her kids, who came with real, messy, devastating consequences, wasn't as appealing as the woman who showed up at his door for a few stolen hours. Yeah, I said numbly. Let's do that. I never heard from him again. The custody hearing was worse than anything I could have imagined. Jake's lawyer was efficient, thorough, and utterly devastating. They had the tracking data from my car. They had testimony from the gym confirming I was never there. They had Derek's testimony, given willingly, I later learned, in exchange for Jake not pursuing a civil suit against him for alienation of affection. Derek threw me under the bus without hesitation. Made it sound like I'd pursued him, like he'd been an unwilling participant in my obsession. Maybe that made it easier for him to sleep at night. The judge looked at me with something like pity, which was somehow worse than disgust would have been. Mrs. Morrison, you understand that your actions demonstrate a pattern of deception and prioritization of your own desires over your children's well-being. I nodded, unable to speak. I'm granting primary custody to Mr. Morrison. You'll have supervised visitation every other weekend pending completion of family therapy and a psychological evaluation. Supervised visitation with my own children. Because I couldn't be trusted. Lily cried the first time she saw me at the supervised visitation center. She kept asking why she couldn't come home with me. Why we had to stay in this weird room with the woman watching us. Mommy made some mistakes, baby, I said, holding her close. But I'm going to fix them, okay? I'm going to fix everything. But I couldn't. That was the thing. I couldn't fix anything. Oliver, my 4-year-old, barely remembered me after 2 months. He was polite but distant, like I was a friendly stranger rather than his mother. Jake had gotten him into play therapy. The therapist reported that Oliver had anxiety about abandonment, about people leaving. I created that fear in my baby. My friends stopped calling after the first few weeks. At first they'd reached out with careful, probing messages. Are you okay? We heard what happened. But when the full story came out, and it always comes out, the messages stopped. The group chat went silent whenever I posted. Sarah, my supposed best friend, blocked me entirely. I have kids, she texted before blocking me. I can't have someone in my life who would do what you did. What if my husband is around? I can't trust you. My own sister was the worst. Do you have any idea how embarrassed I am? She hissed at me over the phone. People are asking me about you, about what you did, about how I didn't see it coming. You've made our entire family look bad. I'm your sister, I whispered. You were my sister. The sister I knew wouldn't have done this. I don't know who you are anymore. She didn't speak to me for 8 months. When she finally did, it was stilted. Formal, the warmth was gone forever. I started therapy because the judge mandated it, but I kept going because I had nothing else. Nowhere else to go. No one else to talk to. Tell me about the night you first went to Derek's apartment, Fletcher said during our third session. I've told you. No, really tell me. What were you feeling? What were you thinking? I was thinking that I deserved to feel wanted again, I said. That I'd given everything to my family and lost myself in the process. That Jake had stopped seeing me as a person and only saw me as a mother and a wife. And now I think I was a selfish coward who destroyed the best thing that ever happened to her because she couldn't handle the ordinary challenges of marriage. Fletcher leaned forward. That's awareness, that's growth. It's too late, I said. Awareness doesn't undo what I did. Growth doesn't bring my family back. She didn't argue because she couldn't. Because I was right. I saw Jake at a school event 6 months after everything fell apart. He'd lost weight, there were shadows under his eyes. But Lily was holding his hand, smiling up at him, and he was smiling back. They looked like they were healing. Without me. He saw me across the playground and his face went carefully blank. He whispered something to Lily, who looked over at me, waved hesitantly, then turned back to her father. They walked away. I wasn't part of their unit anymore. I was the person who used to be in the family photos. The ghost they were learning to live without. The apartment I finally rented was small, cheap. In a part of town I'd once driven through and thought, thank God we don't live here. I got a job waitressing, not because I needed the money. The divorce settlement was fair, probably more fair than I deserved, but because I needed something to fill the endless, echoing hours. Because sitting alone in that apartment, scrolling through old photos of my kids, was slowly driving me insane. Sometimes I'd see families come into the restaurant. Couples with their kids, laughing over pancakes, the parents sharing those exhausted, knowing looks that long-term couples have, and I'd feel something break open inside my chest. That was supposed to be me. That was my life. I threw it away for what? For a few months of feeling desired, for an ego boost, for the illusion that I was still young and exciting and someone worth pursuing. I traded my family for absolutely nothing. Derek moved out of state 8 months after everything happened. I found out through a mutual friend, though I don't really have mutual friends anymore. Everyone picked sides and no one picked mine. He never apologized, never reached out, just packed up and left, erasing any evidence of what we'd done. I couldn't do that. My evidence was 2 children who flinched when I tried to hug them. Who called me by my first name sometimes instead of mom. Who had learned to build a life that didn't include me. The psychological evaluation for the custody arrangement was humiliating in ways I didn't think possible. Do you understand why your actions were harmful to your children? The psychologist asked. Yes, explain it to me. I prioritized my own gratification over their stability. I lied to their father, which compromised the trust and security of their home environment. I was emotionally absent even when I was physically present. I modeled destructive behavior and dishonesty. She made notes. You've clearly done work on this. Why do you think you made those choices? Because I was selfish. Because I wanted to feel special. Because marriage and motherhood felt like a cage and I didn't have the maturity or courage to communicate that to my husband. Because I thought I deserved more than what I had, when what I had was everything. More notes. If you could go back, what would you do differently? I said, and I started crying. I would do everything differently. I would tell Jake I was struggling. I would suggest couples therapy. I would be honest about feeling invisible instead of looking for validation outside my marriage. I would cut Derek off the first time he said anything inappropriate. I would remember that my kids were watching, learning, building their entire understanding of love and commitment based on what I modeled for them. But you can't go back, she said gently. No, I can't. The report recommended continued supervised visitation with the possibility of unsupervised visits in another 6 months. Progress, I guess, though the word felt meaningless when I'd lost so much ground. I started writing letters to my kids that I never sent, pages and pages of apologies, explanations, admissions of guilt. My therapist suggested it as an exercise, a way to process everything. Dear Lily, I'm sorry I taught you that love means lying. That commitment means nothing. That your father, who loved you more than anything, wasn't worth my loyalty. I couldn't finish most of them. They always ended with me sobbing over the keyboard, unable to articulate the magnitude of what I'd destroyed. A year after everything fell apart, I ran into one of Jake's coworkers at the grocery store. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me, like she wanted to pretend she hadn't. How's Jake doing? I asked, hating myself for asking but unable to stop. She hesitated. He's dating someone, from the office. She's really good with the kids. The floor dropped out from under me. Of course he was dating. Of course he'd moved on. He was a good man, a good father, and he deserved to be happy. He deserved someone who wouldn't betray him. But knowing that another woman was tucking my kids into bed, reading them stories, being there for all the moments I'd thrown away, it was almost too much to bear. That's good, I managed. He deserves to be happy. Yeah, she said, and the pity in her eyes was unbearable. He does. I stopped looking at social media entirely after I saw a photo someone had posted. Jake at a company picnic, Lily and Oliver playing in the background, a woman's hand visible in the corner of the frame. The caption said something about beautiful families. That was my family. Those were my kids. That should have been my hand in that photo. But I'd given it all away. Some nights I still think about that first time I drove to Derek's apartment. I think about how easy it would have been to turn the car around. To go home. To talk to Jake about what I was feeling instead of seeking comfort in someone else's bed. I think about all the moments I had to stop. All the times I could have chosen my family. All the lies I could have refused to tell. And I think about how I didn't. How I chose, again and again to prioritize my ego over everything else. The supervised visitation supervisor reports have gotten better. I'm appropriate with the children. Responsive to their needs. Making efforts to rebuild trust. But you can't quantify what's been lost in those reports. The way Oliver doesn't run to me anymore when I walk in the room. The way Lily asks careful questions about where I live and who I live with, like she's trying to assess whether I'm stable. The way both of them watch me with this guarded uncertainty, like they're waiting for me to disappoint them again. I probably will. Not intentionally, but how do you rebuild trust that's been so completely shattered? How do you prove to your children that you're not the person who destroyed their family when you are exactly that person? My therapist says healing takes time, that I need to forgive myself, that I can't move forward while drowning in guilt, but I don't want to forgive myself. Forgiveness feels like letting myself off the hook. It feels like saying what I did wasn't as bad as it was. And it was bad, it was devastating. It was the worst thing I've ever done. And I did it knowingly, repeatedly, enthusiastically. I destroyed my family for nothing. Derek is gone. My friends are gone. My sister barely speaks to me. My children are learning to live without me. Jake is building a new life with someone who will probably be a better partner than I ever was. And I'm here, alone in a cheap apartment, working a job I'm overqualified for, spending every other weekend in a supervised visitation center watching my children play while a stranger takes notes. This is what I chose. This is what I earned. There's no redemption arc coming, no grand gesture that will fix everything, no moment where Jake forgives me and we become a family again. That's not how this story ends. This story ends with me sitting alone, knowing exactly what I had and exactly what I threw away. It ends with supervised visits and awkward conversations and children who love me because they're supposed to, not because I've earned it. It ends with the brutal, honest truth: I did this to myself. And I have to live with that every single day for the rest of my life. Sometimes I drive past our old house, the one Jake kept, the one where my children still live. I see the lights on in their rooms at night. I see Jake's car in the driveway. Sometimes I see that other woman's car there too, and I sit there in my car, 2 blocks away so I don't violate the custody agreement, and I let myself feel the full weight of what I've lost. My daughter learning to ride a bike without me cheering her on. My son's first day of kindergarten that I heard about secondhand. Family movie nights where someone else makes the popcorn. Bedtime routines I'm not part of anymore. Inside jokes I'll never understand because I wasn't there when they were created. 1,000 tiny moments that make up a life, a family, a home, and I'm not in any of them. This is my cautionary tale. This is what happens when you convince yourself you deserve more than what you have. When you prioritize excitement over commitment, when you think you're clever enough to have everything without consequences, you lose it all, every single thing, and there's no one to blame but yourself.